welcome back to day 3 and our first presentation of the day. You all know you're here for Bev Roesch, who is from New York City originally and transplanted to Salt Lake City. And she's been working in the field of chemical dependency treatment for over 25 years and has taught at the Alcohol and Drug Certificate Program at the University of Utah Graduate School for over 15 years. Bev's going to be taking you through some experiential techniques this morning that you'll be able to use in your practice, and I'm really jealous that I don't get to stay here with all of you because I really want to be here this morning. So enjoy your session, and we'll see you later on.
All right.
Welcome, Bev.
Thank you. I'm not keen on lecturing, so I like us to have an experience. I'm a clinical director of Cirque Lodge, which is known for its experiential techniques. We've been around for over 20 years now. And we have giant experiential techniques, things like horses, equine therapy, probably some of the best equine therapy, ropes courses. And those are all wonderful, but there's a lot of little stuff that's really powerful that anybody can use in any context. And so we've been playing with experiential techniques for a very long time, and I find them very powerful and very useful in moving clients along in the process, to waking them up a little bit. What you've got up here, so I'm going to point out techniques right as we go. This is a technique. Why would someone do this? Anybody? I've just got quotes flashing with music in the background. When I'm teaching up at the university, I always talk to my students like, always think about the room. The room that you're in is a big deal, and how you arrange the light and sound and scent and all those kinds of things really matter, and they can really move a process along or become a complicating factor. So anybody, why would we do this? I tend to use this with families before I start speaking to them. They're up having breakfast in our big area, and see, these are just slowly flashing up there, a little music in the background. Why? Yes? Mm-hmm. I'm starting to marinate them a little bit. And usually there's one or two of these that'll grab them, get them thinking, moving them into the process that we're going to go into. So you're trying to get people ready to engage emotionally and with their issues. And I find that, there's always they're up there grabbing a couple of them that they want to keep, and remember. And it just starts to slowly and gently immerse them in the therapeutic process. And it's easy. I love easy stuff that can create a context. So what we're going to do is start off, hit escape here. So that'll be all that we see of this, but these kind of programs are readily available if they appeal to you. And I think I'm a success if you come out of this workshop with one thing that you could use that will be helpful in your practice. I'll be throwing a bit at you. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start off with a brief meditation. I believe meditation has now been so well researched that I think every program's got to have some version of it, just because it's very, very researched for making a difference for people with addictions and a host of other conditions. And again, it's simple, not easy. And so we'll start off with a brief meditation. There's all these little simple mindfulness techniques. They've got these LED lights now, which you don't have to light a candle, which gets you in trouble in some places. But for some people, I tend to like to close my eyes, but some people like to have a point of focus that's external to them. And my guess is many of you already have your own meditation practice. So if you wouldn't just start for a minute, close your eyes or look at the candle and take a deep breath. And the very simplest meditation technique is really just watching your breath.
I'm going to leave you now. I'll be back shortly.
Okay. The what?
Would you like it follow on the screen?
Oh yes, yeah, they did that. And just continue to watch your breath. You may notice your mind chattering That's what minds do. Thank you. Okay. And just keep coming back to the breath. You may notice what you're feeling this morning. Notice it, honor it. Come back to the breath. One of the things we like to do in treatment with the families is make it, all your feelings are welcome here. So just notice what they are. Come back to the breath. With each breath, just try to drop into your seat a little bit more. Feel the weight of your body on your chair. Feel your feet on the ground, here, now. Keep dropping in. At this point, sometimes I ask to check in with your spiritual center. Some people perceive that to be the solar plexus or the heart. If you can relate to that, just check in with your spiritual sense. Your connection with yourself, the universe, others, a higher power. And just keep dropping in. Beauty of the breath is you get distracted, just come back to the breath. Just notice it again, bring it back. Can't do it wrong. And now at the end of this, I want you to allow an image or a word to emerge that in some way represents you today. Take what you get. Could be a word, could be an image. And when you've got one, you've all got a piece of paper, there's colors in the middle of the room, but quickly draw whatever that symbol was. This isn't an art test, it's just to capture a symbol of you today. They could take this one too, if they want. Okay, and then just capture it and try to make it big because we're going to share some of these. So if you make it pretty large on the page, people can see it. Excuse me?
Did you say a word?
Sure, whatever came to you. Could be a word, could be an image, could be a tree, could be peace, could be whatever. Just whatever popped up. I always start my university classes with this exercise because everybody gets tired of sharing their name, rank, and serial number. Your name, how old you are, you married, not, kids, where do you work? Symbols capture a little bit of our essence, something that runs a little deeper in us. And sometimes things that surprise us will pop up, but we're looking to access a deeper stratum. So if you're willing, and nobody has to feel forced to, could I get a few people to share their image and just tell us a little bit about it? Yes. Oh, there's it.
You feel what?
Like dancing.
Do you dance a lot?
No.
Interesting that pops up for her. It could be something that her spirit or her soul or her essential self is longing for. It's very interesting what pops up. Who else has got one? Yes. Oh, let's go ahead.
That's fine. I just got like a symbol of peace with like but a lot of energy in it, like an energized peace.
How's that you?
How's that me? Oh, I've been through a lot of turmoil, and I went to the meeting this morning, and I just got like a sense of like breakthrough and resolve.
You channeled that energy into peace and breakthrough and
really
resolve.
peaceful, which I have had a lot of turmoil recently. So.
Wow.
And somebody wants this chair just come in. I'm
We
going to sit on the floor actually with my feet.
Okay, someone else.
Okay, that's it. That's it's difficult to explain what it is, but how it feels is I rushed to get here, but I've been here. This is my third day here, and I'm feeling today quite like there is like a glowing energy that I got from here, and I'm getting now. So it feels quite, in a way, settled and in a way glowing.
Nice.
It's a really lovely energy.
Yes.
I feel such a lovely environment, very strong energy, and it's moving. It's not like static.
Thank you.
That's how it feels.
Someone else. Yes.
This is me. I feel invigorated today. Just from all the learning and everything.
Great. Someone else.
Down there, mine's at peace. I pulled 2 cups and it was raining. It was so cute, but
Everybody's a lot of you are supercharged from the conference. That's awesome. These can be exhausting. All right.
Last night I was exhausted.
Yeah. Somebody else? Yes.
that came to my mind. It's meant to be an elephant, by the way, but I'm not a good drawer. And I don't know why that came to my mind. I have no idea.
Do you like elephants?
I think I do, yeah.
Yeah. Do you get at all what they symbolize for you?
Maybe strength.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Me, I'm feeling joyful.
Okay. A lot of joy and positive energy in the group. That's awesome. Somebody else?
And interesting, there was a red pen and a black pen, and somebody got the red pen. There was some situation, but I feel love.
All right.
I feel love.
Anybody else?
quite contradictory. This is mine. And I'm just listening to everything that's gone before. And it's quite positive energy, quite focused, quite calm, quite peaceful. Mine feels different, and I just noticed my internal dialogue as we were going round. Is it okay to count different words?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So I just noted some of that. And then I did put a bit of calm in it. That was my bit of calm and my bit of peace. So,
Okay, somebody else.
Yeah, bright light, so that's the first thing I visualised,
Uh,
asking, and I think yesterday I did have like kind of really, how to say, light bulb experience in one of the workshops. It kind of like really affected me, so that's why, like in a good, affected me in a good way. So yeah.
Some of these images are so vivid, you may not remember somebody's name, but you often remember the image that they had. And now we see them in the hallways, we'll see the light bulb, you know. It's powerful. What are some of the themes that are coming up with this group? Energy, light, love. Yeah.
I think you're benefiting from that. I wrote 2 words, daunted, excited. I'm daunted and excited because I'm about to touch wood, sell my house and buy a new one, and I'm maybe hours away from exchanging if the bank doesn't promise to do last week. But I know that if 5 years ago I'd have been terribly paranoid. I'm not. I'm far more focused on listening to everybody else and actually worrying about perhaps the biggest changes in my life in 50 years. So
And you're here and now.
I'm here in the room and I'm not actually stressing about the bank.
Wow.
I know I wouldn't have done 5 years or even a year ago. So I thank everybody that's putting so much up there. It's helping me along.
Awesome. So you don't need to be an art therapist to ask a client to draw a picture, right? Sometimes we get scared off of simple little techniques like draw me a picture, you know, and let them play with that a little bit and bring out symbols. In addition to drawing a picture, there's other ways to work with symbols. Out on the table, I have some visual cards here, and they just have a lot of beautiful images on them. Some of them are really happy images, some of them are darker images. And how many of you use cards with clients? Okay, and again, it's like from a Jungian point of view, we're projecting onto the image. What my take on one particular image would be very different than yours, and then I'm projecting out something from my subconscious, my unconscious, right? And I learned something about that from pulling it out. Another way, how many of you are using sand tray? Okay, sand tray is really powerful. Again, so simple, and for therapists to have sand tray in their offices is really great because you can have just a little stand in the corner of the room. Like at my facility, I've got like an alcove. It's got probably about 1,000 different items, from the darkest of the dark, from devils and demons, all the way to light beings and angels and everything in between. So someone could come in and look at the images and pick out something that draws them. Or it's really great in family work or in relationship work. You might pick out a symbol that represents your husband or your wife, or a child would come in and put their whole family together in a sand tray. And children are far more articulate with symbols than they are like, how's it going with your family? And they'll just sit there. But you get them playing with items and they project. I had one, I think she was maybe 4, and we were in the sand tray room at Cirque, and she was there with her family, and she wasn't speaking much. And I said, hey, would you pick something that represents mommy and daddy and your family? So, and that's where the sand tray comes. You tend to arrange them in a sand tray. And she goes, right. And the mother was saying, she's too young to be affected by my addiction, right? She goes straight to the devil, throws it in the sand tray and says, that's mommy when she drinks. And it was incredible. It opened up, and mother was shocked, like, wow. And then she was able to talk a little bit about how that was so. But it hadn't been for the image, the child would never have spoken to that. And it was really powerful for the mother to realize the child had been noticing what was going on, was frightened of her when she was using. And again, what I love about this stuff, it's simple, use it. Those of you who like, Great Britain has tons of these thrift stores. I love this stuff, because you can find all sorts of cool little unusual items in thrift stores, or charity shops, as you call them here. And for those of you who are inclined for these kind of symbols, they're easy to put together and have them in your office. And you don't use them all the time. You use them when somebody needs to be drawn out a little bit. Anybody, would you share a little bit how you use the sand tray?
Well, I have these little figures. They can choose the figures, like a mom or a father, or themselves as a child, or themselves as grown up, or they choose something which represents safety, like a safe place or a safe spot. And I work with psychodrama, so I get them to roll the reverse with all the different parts. That's how I use it.
Wonderful. And the, yes,
Can I just share that I had it done to me
yes,
literally about a week ago, and I'd never knew nothing about it.
okay.
And I was feeling overwhelmingly alone. And when I had to choose from thousands of things, and I was going, I hate this. This is not me. I don't know what to pick. What's right? What's wrong? And I first of all saw a picture of a child, a doll, sort of on its own, looking sad. So I picked that. And then at the end, I was looking for something else, and I thought I wanted to look for lots of people, to surround me with lots of people, and I suddenly saw this one figure, very similar to the first one, sitting on her own, but she had a big smile on her face. And it was just overwhelming, because that's who I wanted to be, is that person who was on her own, but happy.
Wow.
Rather than needing to be surrounded by people. So I just thought it was amazing.
Wonderful, simple, right? It
Really
says
simple,
beautiful
and I get
simplicity.
myself.
And the client leads the way. She tells us what the symbols mean. I'm not telling her what her symbols mean. And it just draws them out of a slightly deeper stratum of themselves. Like there's this incredible intrinsic wisdom in all of our clients that longs to come out. And symbols really help them come out without us being too ham-handed and overly directing, you know, what wants to come through the client and speak. The other way, when we talked about cards, there are literally hundreds of different types of decks. I'd stay away from tarot just because it's connected with the occult and there's some frightening aspects to that for some people. But there's all sorts of cards out there that have wonderful images on it that you can use in your practice. And the client will pick one and then project onto it and tell you a lot about themselves that sometimes won't come up in just a straight narrative. I want to come back to meditation again briefly because it's so powerful and so useful that I hope that everybody is getting into it. There is some research that says the meditating counselors actually has better outcomes. Anybody guess why that might be true? You might actually show up present, right? I had one student, every time before his session, he would very diligently do a brief meditation for himself. But it's not a bad idea. Like whatever you do to center yourself, come into full present state awareness is really powerful for the client. And so having a little meditation practice, and meditation is divorced from religion now, you know, so you don't have to worry that somehow you're being inculcated into Buddhism or any other, you know, it goes well with a religion, but meditation is freestanding skill that can be taught to anyone without feeling like you're pushing people in a particular religious direction. I love this image. And the original quote of us, "This is why your dog is happier than you are," okay? And I think it speaks to this whole line of the toxicity of the mind. You know, we're in the past or in the future, we're harboring grudges, we have a lot of thoughts that relate to, you know, our politics and our beliefs, etc. And our mind is so crowded with this that we're often restless, irritable, and discontent, even in the most beautiful environment, right? And what's the dog doing? He's just there, you know. But if for purposes of this, one of the things we're shooting for is to begin to get to present state awareness. And getting there has enormous impact for recovery. You're less tortured. That tortured worldview can actually drive people to suicide. Some of the stuff in there is horrible. And most of us as therapists, we're in there working with all that stuff and trying to change it and reframe it and get to the core, etc. But there's also this whole notion of getting to present state awareness, to a context where you have what we call the observer or the witness, and you begin to see what's going on in your mind, and you're not driven by it. You can see it, and you're not necessarily carried away by it. You can start to abide in the present more. And there's a lot of magic in the present. There's a lot of beauty in the present. So many of the new techniques coming out now are mindfulness-based, which is really exciting. Mindfulness is coming into a lot of the advanced techniques that we're learning now. So very, very important. But Jung talked about vital spiritual experiences. And I'm from a 12-step program, you know, and I really believe in it. Whether or not you are in a 12-step program, you're talking about spirituality a lot and how to bring that through, that aspect. And spirituality tends to exist in the present moment. That's where those synchronicities happen. Jung talked about that. And synchronicity is simply meaningful coincidences, which are going on all the time, but our minds are so distracted, we miss it. You know, that chance meeting. You're interested in somebody and you encounter a book or somebody who knows something about it. And this kind of thing is going on all the time in life. But we're so cluttered mentally, we miss all the ways that kind of the universe is trying to help us if we were able to be in present state awareness and pay attention. So let me just get this. So some 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day, mostly are repetitive, automatic, and ingrained, and negative. We're thinking a lot each day. Meditation increases our awareness of these thoughts and helps us interrupt and slow down our racing and scattered minds. You spot unexamined assumptions that get in the way of your happiness. You'll stop limiting yourself. You'll discover a deeper sense of what's important to you. You'll be in better touch with the best parts of you. And this is cool. Your brain changes to support recovery, reduction in the amygdala due to lowered stress levels, and the strengthening of the prefrontal cortex. It reduces reactivity, increases well-being. It just goes on, the benefits of meditation. So why not? It's pretty simple. Helps all the intentions of recovery and helps support people to stabilize in their mind. And it's a good adjunct to any of the therapeutic models that you're using. So, experiential therapy is a treatment approach that combines theory with action, and it helps therapists touch people's lives deeply and intimately. This is Sharon Wegscheider-Cruz, one of the very early experiential therapists, so I wanted to honor her, you know. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So we're trying to move the body around, we're trying to different modalities to bring through what we're trying to do in experiential therapies. So movements, they're simple, multisensory in nature. They can be very helpful when progress in verbal therapies is stifled or plateauing. In regards to trauma, it often helps us find a way to express what has happened to us when it is hard to utter. And we engage these techniques in a soothing and safe environment. So some examples: guided visualization, plays, and poetry. One of our alumni came in and did the vagina dialogues with the women. I don't know how many of you know it, but what a powerful intervention that was. She's an actress, and she just came in and worked that with the women, and just sharing the reading of that play was really powerful. Video therapy, I was just thinking recently, you know, those of you who are good at collecting clips from videos that are very powerful, I was just thinking, I was working with and again, this is simple stuff to gather. I think it was, do you remember the movie Ghost? Patrick Swayze, so he's dead, trying to solve his mystery, but in the end scene, he's saying goodbye to Demi Moore, who's his wife. He's solved the mystery of his murder, and he's about to go into the light. And he's saying to her, he said, the amazing thing is, the love inside, you take it with you. And it's this exquisite kind of goodbye scene. And I was talking, they say he was actually a billionaire, I think, and about what if it were true that love was the only thing we took with us out of this life? There was something about it. It was so well acted and so touching. Remember him sitting there, and I could see a shift in him as you watched that clip. And you know, Hollywood actually did it for us. It has a wonderful scene about the only thing you leave life with is love and the connections that you have. And he began in that moment to start to reorient his life to something that would be more meaningful for him. It's very powerful. And so a lot of you thinking of movies, can anybody think one that you use, or anybody else use little clips sometimes? Has anybody got an example?
I used Dead Poets or something.
Yes, which scene?
The one when waiting to stand up.
Yes, on the desk.
Yeah, no, that's the end thing. This is the same when he's afraid to, he's not done his homework, he's not written poetry.
Okay.
He gets him up front of the class and encourages him to talk about ragging to the man.
Yes.
And it's so powerful because it shows we all have something beautiful to say.
Yes. And gathering that stuff, and again, these are inexpensive ways of just gathering clips. Even video therapy, you might assign a client to, I'd like you to watch this movie, let's talk about it next time we meet. But using clips to weave into workshops and even groups sometimes, we might pull in a clip that's so emotionally gripping that it moves the whole group into a deeper discussion on what it is you've chosen. Drumming circles, emotional freedom technique, which is actually a simple tapping technique of meridians that's very easily learned online. Aromatherapy, anybody using that? Aromatherapies are real big in the States. These big, aromas are tricky, and I wasn't going to use one here today because some people have violent reactions to aromas. But for some people, like lavender smells, etc., is very useful. Role play of all kinds, expressive journals, sociometry, dream work, groups around a campfire, sculpting play, creating mandalas. Just a lot of so let's do, for this, it's odd, yeah. I was going to just do a little bit of that with you. Can we stand up for a minute? This is going to be a little bit tough. Sociometry is so simple and so usable. And Tion Dayton is here, you guys. She's one of the masters of psychodrama. So if you get to go to her workshop, please do. And she'll teach you a lot of this kind of stuff. So with sociometry, you take a group and people say something about themselves. And if that's true for you too, you step in, or if it might be true for you and there's no way you're stepping in on that, you don't have to step in, but say something about yourself and other people that relate to that step in for a minute, and then you step back out. So I'll throw, you got one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm used to it.
Yeah.
I'm from a big family. I'm one of 11 children.
Whoa. Anybody else? Stay there for a minute. Anybody else from a big family? Maybe not that big. Anybody else?
4 brothers.
All right. Okay. I personally worry a lot about climate change. And once you get here, you see there's other people that can relate to it, and there's other people who don't. Both is okay, but sometimes you can, just fosters a connection. You come out with a little part of yourself that maybe you don't share with everybody, and you see you're not alone, okay? Somebody else. And it can be real easy stuff or harder stuff. Anybody else?
Sometimes I feel awkward when I come to conferences.
I've been divorced.
You're not alone. Look around. You see these little things is very powerful because sometimes people get very isolated in their head and they start to imagine they're the only person who's been through that. And even just, it brings you back into the human family just to realize, okay, other people are struggling with this. And you start to notice, and maybe you might approach somebody who stepped out to find out what their experience was.
I had a miscarriage.
What was it?
I had a miscarriage.
Oh, very powerful. Now, one of the things you could do, you might go into it more, depending on how well you know the group, you might dialogue more about that and go deeper into it. For the context of this, we don't know each other that well, so it would be presumptive of me to go too much further with that. Something else?
And Brazilian? And foreigner?
Mind sharing where?
Hungary.
Spain. American. Brazilian.
That's right, I'm a foreigner here. Something else, anybody want to?
I was adopted.
Adopted? Not the only adopted person in the room.
I like to be caffeine and sugar-free.
What was it again?
I like to be caffeine and sugar-free.
Okay.
Caffeine and sugar-free.
Okay.
Interferes with me, so.
In my university class, the last time I taught the group work, one gentleman stepped down and said, I've tried to commit suicide, which I thought was very risky. 2/3 of the class stepped out. It stunned me, you know. So that was a moment, you know, and a powerful moment for that young man who didn't realize how many people, these are clinicians in training, that had been to that place themselves. There's something curative even in that, like the resonant frequency of not being alone. Really powerful. Anybody else? Yeah.
I can feel very alone whilst surrounded by a lot of people.
Did you realize this many people? Look around for a minute. Isn't that amazing? Sometimes it makes us feel less like aliens when we hear that other people struggle with this. Okay, we'll do one or two more. And you got a burning one that you want to share?
It's strange in light of what you just said. I did attempt suicide on the 6th of September last year.
Oh, wow.
I'm glad to be here.
We're glad you're here. Wow. It's the whole thing about the wounded healer, too. You know, people that have been in very dark places themselves, they're able to transmute that into an incredible empathy and open space to see, hear, and be with other people.
At times I don't feel good enough.
It's going to be just about everybody.
You know that's going to be a crowded space.
All right. All right, so let's sit down. You get this, how easy this one is? You can use this at a church group, Thanksgiving dinner, or your dinner at your family. Hey, let's do a little sociometry. And for the most part, you would be doing lightweight. So I really like soccer or this or that. But you'll be surprised how quickly people will start to share something that's a little more depth. Because even in this group, there's a longing to share our deeper stratum of being. We just don't get an opportunity to do it that much. And once there's a little bit of safety, my experience is that it starts to flow. In one of my classes, there was one guy stepped down and he says, I have a brother in death row. I'm like, whoa, somebody else stood out. It was stunning to me. 2 people in the group had brothers on death row. We kill a lot of people in the United States, in case you didn't know. I mean, we had a lot of people on death row, but still, even with that, it was stunning to me that 2 people in that group both had brothers in that situation. What were you going to say?
I find this to be a great warm-up exercise in a group.
Yes. It's great with families, like in our family program, we'll bring the families in and do this with them, and everybody's uptight, but I can't believe how quickly it shifts. They go, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. I can do this. Another simple, I'm just trying to keep, another real simple, it's called a spectrogram. You'll see Tian will be using stuff like this, but like you just put an object of some kind, like my family of origin was the most together functional family that's ever existed. And over here is I grew up in an extremely dysfunctional family. Anybody want to play on this one? Place yourself on the continuum. Super functional family, loving and supportive, incredibly dysfunctional. And only if you feel safe to jump up, you don't have to. Okay, so what you can do, look, these guys, and we get jealous of these guys, like, you got to be in the Brady Bunch or something, right? You know, and so sometimes it's cool to hear reports of what it was like to grow up in a really loving, supportive, functional family. And how you folks doing over there?
Good, we think they're lying.
And look at how many are down there. Once again, it breaks that feeling that you're the only person. Then you could take time, and these guys will share what was so dysfunctional about your family. So at that end, and this side might be talking about. A lot of people do land in the middle. There was dysfunctional aspects and really good aspects. So it breaks the ice, helps people talk about really important things in a relaxed setting with people that already have admitted to what's going on. See how simple this one is? So you can sit down. Any kind of spectrum. I believe in the disease concept, and that's a bunch of nonsense. It's totally about free will. Do this with the families a lot and see where people are at. extremely codependent, not codependent at all. And you're just working with spectrums and getting them to talk to each other about it and to you. Who's doing empty chair work? Good, it's good. Actually it's more than some of the therapists in America. It's good to hear because we're losing this technique a little bit. It's not tending to be taught in universities very well. Do we have anybody here who's in recovery that'd be willing to demonstrate their addictive voice? Yeah? This is a real simple one that we use a lot in treatment. And if you, depending on your credentialing, you can do the addictive voice without it having to go in anything super deep. So, okay. Can you still hear your addictive voice?
Yeah,
How much recovery do you have?
33 years.
Okay. She can still hear it. So jump over and have you sit in the position of the addictive voice. The benefit of this is, okay, it's like pulling out what? We're pulling out the addictive voice. Why? Why do we want to do that?
To externalize it.
That's right, and I can hear it. And if I practice it, I can really hear it. So when it speaks in the quiet of my mind, I recognize it much more quickly than when it's mushed in with all the rest of my thoughts. So I'd like you to talk to her from your addictive mind, the part of you that wouldn't mind go back out and use again.
You 33 years, like nobody else has 33 years, like it's just too long. And besides that, you've earned it. You've earned 33 years. I think that you've got to be in on this. Just think how quick you would connect. When you go sit up at the bar, girl. Oh, Jesus. You got it. You'll have it going. You won't feel afraid. You won't feel different. You'll probably dance on the table. Great. Doing a great job.
Good, let's stop for a minute. What do you notice? No, stay in the seat. What do you notice about her addictive voice?
Very attractive.
It is. I know, it often is very attractive. Now, you cross this voice and it can really change, but usually it's very seductive and inviting at first. So, anything else what you notice about it?
The sense of feeling, wanting to get escape from the feeling different.
Yes.
Feeling alone, feeling,
Yes.
it's powerful in that sense. Really powerful.
There's a lot of energy in it.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of, anybody like, wow, that sounds pretty good, right?
And I think also the tone of her voice went a bit higher.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So jump into the other chair. Clients love addictive voice. And once they get in it, they get laughing and they're helping each other, and they find it very exciting and fun. So it's great in groups, and it also can be done well individually in your office. So what do you have to say back? That was a very kind of sultry invitation. What are you going to say to her?
You got it. You got it. That's all true. But you're batshit crazy. Don't kid yourself. That wouldn't last 5 minutes. Like, that wouldn't even last 5 minutes. You talk about lonely, you would know loneliness that you can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Embarrassed, shame, guilt, remorse, oh yay, Bob.
How's she doing? Really good, right? She's got a great, calm answer for this voice, doesn't she? Right? Anything else anybody noticed?
You said taking control, isn't it?
The what?
She taking control.
Yes.
Put it in its place.
Yes. In early recovery, it's very different. Go ahead.
Also acknowledging,
Yes.
you
Yeah, I get your point, right? You know, in early recovery, they often, the addictive voice is very strong, and sometimes they'll sit in the recovering voice and like, they don't even know what to say. So guess what? Somebody who's been in recovery more gets behind them and starts feeding them lines to how to talk to that voice. It's really powerful. And everybody's learning something about how do you deal with your addictive voice simultaneously, you know. It's fun and it's instructive, and it's a cognitive intervention, you know, of working with the externalized voices in your head. So this is the one that's used the most, but then there's a lot of empty chair work. You can talk to parents, practicing husbands, people who are deceased, and you know, working on a dialogue, working through issues when someone's not physically there, right? There's also, is anybody familiar with a voice dialogue? It's another aspect, and there's a lot to this, but they would assert there's many, many, many different personalities in our heads, right? From really lovely ones to pretty nasty ones, you know? And you can pull out different voices. And this one we just pulled out, the addictive, but does anybody have a mildly troubling relationship with a family member right now?
Yes.
You do? Would you be willing to try something? Okay, so for a moment, close your eyes. Who is it? Can you give us a name?
It's my brother. His name is Sunil.
Your brother. So I want you to close your eyes for a minute and find Sunil, is it?
Sunil, yeah.
Good. So now I want to talk to Sunil. So Sunil, what's going on with your relationship with your sister? You speak from him.
She just doesn't want to listen.
Okay.
She has her own ideas about how to do things, and I don't think they're right. She can't see what I'm trying to do.
Do you not feel acknowledged by her?
I'm not acknowledged at all.
Okay. Would you like things to be different with your sister?
I think so.
You think so? Okay. Okay, come on back. And that was just a little piece. The way I use this at Cirque a lot of times is with married couples. You know, somebody will come in and, you know, my wife is fine. I don't think she has a problem with my drinking. I'll have them be their wife, go to that voice in their head. And absolutely, unless they're severely personality disordered, they can always do it. They can step into her place and speak for her. And it's amazing what they'll tell you. And one guy said, I don't know what my wife thinks. I don't know if she cares. I said, okay, what's her name? Mary. Have him go inside, access her, speak from Mary's position. It's always stunning what she says. She'll tell you about the sex life and what's going on with them and everything through him. I had one guy come out of that and he said, oh, I gotta call her right now. He had a moment of empathy with her by being her. These are just simple little Gestalt techniques with loved ones that we actually do know the people in our lives way better than we think we do. And we're actually able to get in their perspective, and it can do wonders for breaking up a really difficult or troublesome dynamic between people. Because I deeply, for a minute, empathize with you, and oh, I get what your issue is with me, you know, or with this relationship. Really powerful, and again, I love to emphasize simple techniques. Yes?
That chair exercise that I did with the disease is, I find, is also really powerful to educate families.
Yes.
And they're like, I had no idea you ever thought about still drinking.
Yes.
You know, and it's like, wow, somebody with 33 years can still romanticize a drink. You know,
Yes, and it gives them some empathy for your predicament, right?
Yeah.
And for the voices in our heads, and how good are we getting at dealing with these residual voices in our head, right? Of all kinds, but because this is chemical dependency, we're working with the addictive voice. So again, voice dialogue, you could look it up, there's just tons of applications of this. There's a Zen monk in Salt Lake that's worked with the transcendent voices like the Master, the Enlightened one, and to be honest, they're all there. So it's very fun, and we haven't got time to play with that, with having a person step into the Master, or, you know, the undamaged self, the essence of self that's never been wounded by anything, like the soul, but a part of them that has a sense of the transcendent function of your life, why you're here. I've had young people in group therapy with with a mother, and the mother was so exasperated with this 22-year-old boy, and she was disgusted with him, about to write him off. And I said, step up out of your seat, and I had John pick one of his friends, be him. So the friend sat down, and he spoke. I said, you're your higher self, your true self, your God self, whatever worked for him. Talk to your mother about what's going on with him. In the most eloquent of terms, he told her what was happening with John. And it just, she realized that there was this part of him that was awake and alive and had a plan for his life, and it wasn't the sum total of what had happened in the addiction. It was very, very powerful. And when I saw a 22-year-old do that just off the top of his head, we should use these techniques more, and accessing different parts of people without feeling like it's going to take forever for them to get to this other part of themselves, this healthy part of themselves. It's actually in them right now. Now, can it take over their lives completely immediately? But if they can catch a glimpse of that part of themselves, they have some hope for recovery, you know, and they can cultivate that.
I just wanted to acknowledge what you just did about being touched by accessing people like that.
Could you feel him a little bit?
Yeah, it's quite weird because we don't speak at all, and yet we stay in the same place when we're in kinesics. It's unbelievably awkward, and there was this kind of combination of, like, I think we're very similar, but there's this combination of that sense, and then there's an element, there's sort of an element of me that was sort of in there, just not wanting to acknowledge, like sort of underneath it, or not wanting to acknowledge that this fellow who I've decided I really despise has any thought to himself. You know what I mean? So it was quite strange.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could do a lot more of that. And thank you for pulling that up. I appreciate that, to acknowledge her for that, for taking that risk. Thank you. Family sculpts. Anybody doing these? Just a reminder, most of us learned these in schools, but it's creating a sculpt, picking someone in the group to be your mother, your father, your brother, sister, and you arrange them in the room according to how they interact. Again, Tion will touch on this kind of stuff this afternoon. She's going to be with you for a good hour and a half to 2 hours, you know, and taking you through exercises. So family sculpts are powerful, yes?
Yeah, we work in a treatment centre which deals with clients within their first 6 weeks.
Uh-huh.
We do a lecture whereby we educate about family roles. But where I worked before, we did this, and it was really powerful. And the feedback we got was that actually it might not be appropriate for clients in their first 6 weeks. So I just wondered what you think about
I usually bring the family in, so in the absence of family, I'll do sculpts. Sometimes we can't get the family in, or the family's too far away. And so they can have a powerful family experience without families being around. If I can get the families live, I prefer that. But I find it's helpful, even in early recovery, yes.
I was just going to say, in early recovery, when you're trying to deal with the consequences of the addiction, and the feelings may not be accessible around family, you know, there may be so many difficult. I would be reluctant to do that myself in early recovery. I certainly would do it in aftercare.
Uh-huh.
You know, but I would be nervous doing it because, you know, emotions are just all over.
The joy of a residential treatment, I have them in this safety bubble all the time. So in some ways, in residential care, you can take more risks because they're surrounded by loving, supportive staff. So if they have residual coming off from a workshop, they can work with that in the evening, the next day, and it builds on itself. So it's a good point for someone working in an outpatient setting, that you would be careful what you set off in them, being that they're going to head straight back out into the street. So sculpts. Sentence stems, this is really easy. Who's using sentence stems? Come on, this is such simple techniques. Let me start with one of you. Just something I worry about is, fill in the blank. It's a sentence stem. So I provide the first part, you provide the second part.
Something I worry. Sorry, so you go.
That's the sentence stem. Something I worry about is, you fill in it.
My size.
I worry about my sight.
Size.
Size, okay. Okay, something I worry about is my size. Somebody else, something I worry about is.
Finances. Ongoing finances.
And try to say the first part. Something I worry about is my.
Something I bet is ongoing finances.
Good. Somebody else.
Something I worry about is my weight.
Okay. Somebody else.
My tendency to isolate.
Something I worry about is my isolating tendency. Somebody else.
Something I worry about is my 13-year-old son.
Uh-huh. Something I love about me is. Can you fill that one in?
My
And
dedication.
say the first part.
Something I
Love about me is.
my dedication.
Good. Somebody else pick up that one.
Something I love about me is my humor.
Okay.
Something I love about me is my kindness.
Good.
Something I love about me is my courage.
Yes.
Something I love about me is my resilience.
Is your what?
Resilience.
Resilience. My mother is, and you can always tell me no.
My mother is a terror.
Somebody else. My mother is.
My mother is an example of lots of
She was on this side of the spectrum, wasn't she? Somebody else. My mother.
My mother is growing a lot as a person who is 83 and changing.
Wow.
I know.
Mother is someone I don't know.
Okay. See how much information came through that one sentence then? If you're doing group work, whoa, we got a ton to work with. There's a lot of different ways you could go. You could pick it thematically. My mother, something I'm worried about. Self-esteem, something I love about me. Something I'm proud about. This is infinite. You come up with the first part of it, they come up with the second. You can create your own cards. Again, very simple, accessible techniques.
Can I say something about this?
Yes.
In songwriting, we do this, and so we'll often do the two sides of it. Like, it's hard to have acceptance because, and if I had acceptance then.
Aha, perfect. There's a lot of different applications. It's up to your own creativity as clinicians. What are we going after today? You know? But groups, it stimulates the group and gets them going quickly. Just in this group, I know you clinicians are already thinking, I'd be curious about, what that one person said, and you might go after that a little bit or help them talk about it some more. I've only got a few more minutes. Genograms, who's using genograms? Again, online, beautiful pictures. I use them as an assessment tool all the time. When I'm first meeting a client, I'm whipping up a genogram to see the picture of their family. And remember one time, one young man, we hung 7 stepfathers off the side of his mother, and it was so powerful for him to see the predicament of that young boy just in us drawing that picture together. Oh, how did you survive that? 7 stepmoms, stepdads, or whatever it was. So genograms, if you don't know what they are, look them up online. There's plenty of forms that you can get to fill out. Great assessment tools and intervention tools. Walking, how many of you get out and move with your client? Yeah, it's really powerful. Doing more of it. I have one counselor for young men. He'd go out and throw a ball. In fact, somebody grab this. Back and forth, and they'd talk, and this young man would talk much more readily, tossing a ball back and forth between it. Broke his normal posture of resistance and just throwing a ball. They'd have great sessions. Also, Dr. Beverly Roesch does this with couples. She finds that talking about difficult issues between couples and they're throwing a ball back and forth, something about it breaks up the rigidity of the pattern between them. I'm not sure what the cause of it is, but what a simple technique to help. Labyrinths, everybody get to do labyrinths? And these are, there's got to be a bunch of them in England somewhere, and here and there, they're just wonderful sacred symbols on the ground that are created for you to walk. Anybody who's been to on-site would know they have a really beautiful labyrinth, and you might take an issue and walk into a labyrinth all the way to the center, and it's a long journey into the center, and people have powerful experiences with techniques like that. How close am I? I'm right there. So it talks about more of the advanced. What's exciting about here, Tion Dayton is here. She is one of the most, she's written all these amazing books that detail all sorts of simple experiential techniques, relationship repair therapy. Hopefully she brought her books with her. You have an opportunity to work with her today. Please do. Breathwork. Breathwork is stunning if you have the right person doing it. And there's somebody doing breath work here, 2 different sessions. Again, those of you who like experiential technique, jump into these, because these ones require more training, but you might be able to get someone to come to your facility and engage in them. These are some of my heroes: Beverly Berg, Alan Berger, Richard. Anybody know Richard Lipfield? He does the inner child work. And he's got this little chair. He just brings it into the room and people sit in it, and like I talk from my 8-year-old. It's like empty chair for the child part of ourselves. It's beautiful, beautiful work. If you ever get a chance to work with him or see his work, it's great. Tion. Richard Litfield.
Okay.
And this is Dave Beck. He's our horse whisperer at Cirque, with the final quote there. But thank you very much. There's so much. You can get my, they can get these, right? Or the PowerPoints if you want them. Cirque Lodge, if you ever want to come out and see us and see these kind of techniques in action, share information amongst each other. This stuff is wonderful, powerful, and very usable. Hope you use it.